So, we are here in Denver, Colorado, and we have been graciously welcomed by the Series Fest people. We're very excited to be here. It's been a great week, and we thank them very much for having us with them. And so this is On Par with Maury Povich. It is a podcast that I've started. I feel like a rookie after 31 years in talk and another 30 years before that as a broadcast journalist. Our guest is Jessica Yellin. Now, Jessica is an award-winning TV journalist. She has something I've never had in my life called a Peabody Award. She is an Emmy Award winner. She has done network television news for many, many years. I think more than anything else, people probably regard her as the CNN senior White House correspondent until 2013, when she left broadcast television to start her own independent journalism site, one of the first to do it, and it's called, as we heard, News Not Noise. And I'll tell you, it must be pretty big because I just saw a post of yours an hour ago, and all of a sudden there were 185,000 likes on Instagram. Jessica Yellin, everybody. Now, before we start, Jessica, I have a present for you. And by the way, Jessica is also the author of this book called Savage News, and it's a novel. And it's a novel about a young person in television news, a young woman, and what she has to go through. But more than anything else, I'm giving Jessica a copy of my wife's memoir called Connie, a best-selling author on the New York Times best-selling list. I don't want to go through it all because it's ridiculous, but I do this because she wrote you an inscription.
Oh my gosh.
Jessica. Dear Jessica, so proud that you are thriving in the new media world. News, not noise. It's the perfect moniker. It's on a sweatshirt that I have.
No,
Connie
really?
Chung.
Oh my gosh, I'm so moved by this. Thank you. Thank you. May I just say, I have to tell you, I spent so many hours of my life watching you on television.
Oh, no.
I feel like I spent more time with you than with members of my own family.
Yeah.
So if my 15-year-old self knew that I was here doing this conversation, I wouldn't have believed it.
Do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to write an article one day giving all the excuses that kids gave their parents to stay at home and watch the show.
I'll contribute. I had some good ones.
So, Jessica was born and raised in Los Angeles, California, and she is the product of some very successful, accomplished parents. And she went to Harvard Westlake private school, which is a big deal in Los Angeles. And then she ended up, don't mention this, Harvard. She went to Harvard. She came out of Harvard. Somehow, they couldn't keep her from the journalistic career. There aren't many journalists who come out of Harvard, that's for sure. And so she ends up at, I think, a cable station in Orlando, and then she finds her way to ABC, and then she is at MSNBC, and she was at CNN for a very, very long time. And then she left in 2013.
I decided that I wanted to do news differently. And I made a choice that I saw the internet was exploding.
No, wait a minute. This is 2013. It's not 2025, right?
Can I back up for 1 second and tell you, when I was growing up, there were two things in my house I wasn't allowed to touch. One was the Life magazine commemorating JFK's election, and one was the Life magazine marking his assassination. He was extremely important to my dad. And that message of service and giving back, that you had to crush it professionally and give back. He gave this speech in 1961 in which he said, there is only one private business that's explicitly protected in the U.S. Constitution, and it's the free press. Yes. Because we need a free press to ensure that we have an informed electorate, which is the foundation of a solid democracy. And so everything I've done professionally has been informed by this sort of drive, passion to help empower people through information to help with an informed electorate in a democracy. I felt like I was there every day. I was doing work in an important place, in a place I revered, and I wasn't doing the work that I thought I was meant to do.
you weren't getting a high every day from being in the White House and covering these events?
The White House is an exceptional place to
And
be.
by the way, it was during Obama years.
It was. So let me give you some context. There I am. My whole career, I wanted to be White House correspondent. Find me at any point along the way, and
Like
they'd
Connie
say,
wanting to anchor the network news. I mean, that's the way you have certain goals.
right. And I was like, I want to be White House correspondent. That's what I want to do. And I was like covering the Martha Stewart trial and then being sent out to some basketball player who shot his driver trial. And they were like, good job. What do you want next? White House. That was my goal. And I ended up covering the Bush White House and then the Obama White House. And it was an exceptional experience. You have as you know, you have this sense of duty and responsibility and history and all those things there.
I'll tell you something. A press pass that says White House on it, I mean, you feel really, really big.
It's cool.
I mean, you feel like you belong, man. You're on top of the world.
Yeah,
White House press pass.
And when you go in, you go in the same gate that the president's top aides go in, all that. You're riding on Air Force One. It's amazing. But I was also I was a political reporter, so I was also out in the field all the time interviewing undecided voters who were overwhelmingly women at that time. Remember, soccer moms was all the thing then. And they would yell at me. And I'd come up to interview, hey, ma'am, can I talk to you? I understand you haven't made your voting decision. And they'd yell at me and they'd say, I hate the news. And they'd do the earmuffs. And I'd say, why? And they'd say, all you do is you yell at me, you give me a panic attack, you tell me there's horrible things, then you go to commercial break. I'd rather watch the Crime Channel. And I'd say, why would you rather watch the Crime Channel? And they'd say, well, at the end of every episode, there's a resolution. Oh. You all just tell me it's a crisis and I don't know what to do about it. And this is the important thing. They take out their pad of paper or their phone and they have questions, real questions. Will this person raise my taxes? How will they impact childcare? And they'd say, I don't get that information. I hear who's yelling at each other, but I need the information.
And you can't get it back at the White House.
It was not what the news environment was built to do at that time. I felt there was this unaddressed audience that wanted information told differently. I do the news on Instagram. That's where I really started, is I have this Instagram following. And people think, oh, well, you're an influencer, so you must be rolling in it. And it's very, very, very challenging to be a little tiny small business owner like I am, doing the news, all of that, and make ends meet and grow the business. That is hard. But I do love having this other way of telling news and this direct connection with the audience. I also think that the media has changed. People spend 8 hours a day on social media right now. The difference is...
Well, you're causing some of it.
Arguably, yes, but the reason I understand that argument, but the reason I did this is because I saw people were already there, and I wanted to reach news avoiders, people who weren't engaging with the news, and it was because they would say to me, I turn it on and it's like walking into a dinner party 10 minutes after it started.
What does that mean?
Who is that person you're talking about? What is that thing what's the bond market? What is the bond market? What are tariffs really? What's a trade deficit? The effort it takes to just explain the thing. Tariffs, which are an added tax on imported goods, blah, 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 blah. We don't do that enough. And so a lot of people feel left out of the conversation. And the way they talk about Uber as the last mile in transportation, I wanted to be the first mile in news, where I'm in your phone, I'm helping you understand what matters, what doesn't, and giving you the language and the knowledge so that you're onboarded to watch CNN, to read the books, to do all the rest.
So do you go on all the various cable sites to see what they're doing?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Do you go on Fox?
Yeah.
Do you listen to Steve Bannon?
I do.
Really?
I mean, I try not to make it like like daily practice, but sure, I have to know what he's talking about.
How about Tucker?
I do that less, but I pay attention to people.
But what you're saying is you try to get a full look at how people are delivering what is called news.
Yes, information. Yeah. And I do think there's an important distinction between fact-based independent providers and others. And that is something that is not transparent or evident to the public, and it's something that we all need to work on in the media.
Yeah, I saw you say something. You said fact-checking is not effective for disinformation. Why not?
It's been, this isn't just my point of view. There's been, sociological research around this. Political strategists have researched this. The concept of fact-checking has itself become politicized.
Well, there are alternative facts, according to
Right.
Ms. Conway, right?
So, this is merely reporting information. Trump has so politicized the idea of the press being dishonest that the act of fact-checking is seen as a false way of discrediting conservatives, especially far-right conservatives. It's also the case that if you're in a conversation with somebody you disagree with, if you say, you're wrong, and here's why, and here are the facts, it doesn't work.
Well, I might pawn something off as fact, which is not fact.
Yes, correct. And so on the right, they assume the people who are fact checking are doing what you're saying. They're using this weapon to mislead. But sort of how we function as humans, you dig into your position if somebody's coming at you like that. So what they've found is the more effective ways are both this thing called pre-buttal, which is warning you in advance that there's this thing coming. And then the other is to ask questions that cause the person who's dug in to question themselves, and if it makes sense.
You think that's doable?
Yes. I've been in those conversations, yes.
How independent are you?
I'm fact-based. And so that means I need to call balls and strikes. And it just is reality that right now, the far right and the MAGA base, in many ways, the far right influencers are promoting a lot of untrue disinformation. And I am going to call that out, and they are not going to like me, and I am okay with that. But I have people in my audience who are Nikki Haley Republicans, who are classic Republicans, who are independents. I have moderate Democrats, and I have people to the left of AOC. And one of the things that makes me most proud is that this is a place where I say we're like-valued, but not always like-minded.
Last night at Series Fest, we're in Denver, Colorado. I met for the first time Senator Michael Bennet,
Yes.
who I've watched for many years because he's on committees. I told him, I said, I covered Congress in the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, once in a while in the 90s. And it was a joy. And it was a joy because it was so collegial between the parties. And he said, boy, I wish I was there. What did you find? Was it better than it is today?
Much. I was there as it started to turn. I remember going to a Tea Party rally in Nevada in, I think it was 2010, for Sarah Palin. And we were driving out, you go in the desert, and you arrive, and people start, you get there and you start saying, I'm love to ask you some questions. I'm with CNN. And they'd go, the lamestream media, right? And get away from me kind of vibes, And it was sometimes aggressive for the first time in my experience. And I remember being on the press stands on those, we call them risers, where you see all the cameras on one side. And at one point, somebody on stage started talking about Second Amendment rights and the lamestream media, and we need to exercise our Second Amendment rights and stop the lamestream media. And they all turned and started glowering. And I remember...
And this is 2010.
10. That was an important inflection point for me. I remember that change where it went from just disagreement to a piece of the public feeling sort of rageful and even threatening. And also, I covered the Tea Party protests during the healthcare debate, where things really got flared up then. And so I think it's accelerated. And, right now we're seeing this enormous divisiveness, right and left, where we're so truly divided. And that's one of the things that I think is so vital for us to address is where do we find common ground? How do those of us who aren't far right or far left find what we do share in common as our values?
I think it changed in the election of 2000. And I think it changed because election was so close that half the country thought the election was stolen. And I think that kind of atmosphere was created with that election. What do you think?
I agree. I think that people felt something was wrong. Whoever they were on their side, something was wrong. And I actually was a local reporter in Florida, and I covered that from Tallahassee in the recount. And it was a sort of turning point in this like team spirit of, you're against me because you're the other party. I do think I think that goes to the Supreme Court, and the court has always been this institution that's sort of above politics, and we saw it as this like esteemed entity, and it seemed so politicized then. It really just hurt a lot of people's faith in the system. May I ask you a question?
No.
Have you ever seen America this divided?
No. I've seen the country sadder than it is.
When?
JFK's assassination.
What did that do to the country?
I think more than anything else, it created for the first time in my time, particularly when it came to events, this huge sense of cynicism. That first of all, within days after that assassination, there's a conspiracy. The CIA did it. Johnson ordered it. This one did this. This one did that. Castro did it. That started the whole thing. And I think out of all these kinds of theories comes cynicism. And that's my own take, because that's kind of that's when I grew up. I mean, I've told people I was at Andrews Air Force Base when Jackie Kennedy came back with the coffin in the back and the blood on her suit.
What was that like?
It was surreal. It was almost like I hate to tell you this, there was a profound sense of silence. You couldn't hear anything. You saw things, but you really couldn't hear anything. And I hate to say this, the exact same thing happened to me on 9/11. After 9/11, when I'm walking up Central Park to pick up my kindergarten child at school to go home, there was this sense of silence. And it's amazing how these events don't cause some cacophony.
Right.
It's silence.
We get frozen.
Yeah.
And we're stuck. We don't know what to do. How do you think we got out as a country from the JFK assassination? How do we move on?
I think in its own way, there were a couple of years there under Johnson when he had the Voting Rights Act and the Civil Rights Act and the Housing Acts and everything else, that he was trying to be FDR so badly that there was a sense of action and motion, and then Vietnam killed it.
Yeah, right.
Killed it.
It's wild. Brought us here.
Yeah,
It all got us here.
Yeah.
Hello.
Why is it important to have a dog?
Oh my gosh. I have a dog named Bruno. I do the news on Instagram, and I started posting pictures of my dog, who is an 11-pound Maltipoo. And I called them Bruno breaks. And people start asking for Bruno breaks. They're like, I just can't take how awful the news is. Can you just give us a Bruno break? And, first of all, dogs are so present. And I have that weird combination of all the things that are kind of challenging right now, which is I spend my day on social media. I look at difficult news all day, and I work from home. So it's me and my phone all day. And I need something that pulls me out of it. And he's so present, right? Dogs make you present. And there's so much love. And it just reminds you that our fundamental nature, I think, is love. And it helps me reconnect with that sentiment whenever I feel like I'm going down that rabbit hole, or I'm around people who are in this like combat mode.
You never feel bad around a dog.
Yeah.
You always feel good. But you say that women, when they're watching news today, cable channels, whatever it is, react differently than men do.
Well, there's social science that actually shows that.
Oh, no.
Okay. You want me to tell you the truth?
It's scientific?
No, yes.
Oh, come on.
It's, how, I don't need to tell you this. Conflict does well on TV.
Oh, yeah. If there wasn't that word, You wouldn't know who I am.
And so I think a lot of the news learned the lesson that what we have to do is shape everything around conflict, so that we both know a story.
It's a Shakespearean theme: conflict, distrust, all of that. Every single Shakespearean theme.
100%. So is love, empathy, compassion, connection, romance. I grew up in LA, so I'm around Hollywood, and people make movies because they're successful because of the empathic connection. And so,
Except for Marvel.
well, okay, not only that. So my sense was a lot of this negativity, the negative focus, the fact that I always say it's only news if the plane crashes. It's true. It's not news if a plane lands, but it's news if we develop new energy sources for planes. And we give so much attention to the plane crash and so little attention to the new energy source. And the negative focus, that frame that we're looking for what's really wrong always, turns off women more than men. It's a thing in your brain, and it's just reality. It's part of the reason I got the new.
No, but wait a second. I thought you said that. I thought I read where you said women have an anxiety level that men do not.
Yes. And so that negativity creates this anxiety and this sense of vigilance and like, I need to do something to fix this. How do I fix this? You want to, I don't want to be you want a mother, right? You want to make it okay. And so it creates this level of this high vigilance that's exhausting. And it can be not only exhausting, if you're exhausted, then you get a little depressed, and then you're like, I don't want to do anything. And then you're not going out to show up at the school board meeting, and you're not voting. And then you're not making your voting decision. And then I'm showing up to interview you and asking, why haven't you decided on your vote? So you start with this little root of like conflict focus, and you get to civic disengagement. And I wanted to see if there's another way to tell the news that's not only about that. I will say one more thing, which is my little tagline when I started this is very challenging these days. It was, we give you information, not a panic attack. And now the information gives you a panic attack, and I don't know what to do about it. Can you help me with the rebrand?
Wow. That was a good line. And people are living it every day.
Yeah. Well, the panic attack.
Yeah. Do you really think that there's a chance that we can reverse things in terms of how media covers the news and delivers the news?
I think that the way the media covers the news has forever changed. And what we need to do is accept that and build the infrastructure to address that. And what I mean is 20% of people get their news from influencers online. That is including people of all ages. If you look at only the young, it's way, way higher. And so we need to accept that that's what's happening and stop trying to resist that.
A lot of people think that's how Trump might have won.
It's possible that it's in part. I mean, I think for sure a lot of his success has been his ability on social media and a whole universe of levers that were pulled and, big forces behind the scenes in the social media and the information space. I say we are in an information war right now. And I don't just mean the parties or people of different points. Russia,
Who's on the
Iran,
side?
China.
Who are the sides?
It's all these outside actors or adversaries. There's, who are all in the information space trying to kind of confuse and divide us. And one of the things we need is to help the public understand, like, who's who in this space. I'll give you an example. I have a friend who's very, very smart, went to college with him, and he sends me, texts me, why aren't you reporting this? And it'll be a TikTok, and I'll look, and it's from Fire Dog 7, 8, 9, 12. And I'm like, who's Fire Dog 7, 8, 9, 12? And I'll Google this. There's no info. I'm like, why do you believe this? This is a guy who went to Harvard, okay? Not like we're such geniuses always, obviously. But the point is, we don't have a way to know what we're looking at. And so I think what we need to do next is legacy media brands like CNN should start seeing some fact-based creators as an extension of their distribution network. So if Mark Thompson wanted to come talk to me about how can News Not Noise and CNN partner, I would love that.
So what you're saying is that CNN, Fox, MSNBC, the networks, they're not recognizing how much influencers, other media are important.
I think they haven't recognized it until recently. They do recognize it now, and there's an awkward adolescence of figuring out how to do these things together. How do you take influencers and make them an extension of anything? CNN, the Washington Post, the New York Times, the Atlantic, you name your outlet. That's one way. Another way is, you know, you all probably like environmentally conscious. You know that there are buildings that get a LEED certification. It means this building has been reviewed and certified for being environmentally friendly, right? Green. We could do something similar with people online. I could sign up and say, I'll let you certify me. Here are the standards I follow. It's one innovation. But we need systems that help regular folks discern who is trustworthy and who's full of it. And we haven't started building that infrastructure. We need it. And maybe AI can help.
I mean, what you're looking for are referees.
Yes.
I don't know whether that's possible.
But can I ask you a question? What was a magazine? Wasn't a magazine a referee where they say, we have these standards, we choose the journalists we trust, we let them go out into the world, bring us back information, and then we make sure it follows those standards. And then we have curated this, validated that it follows our standards.
But every major newspaper thinks they do that today.
They do. The challenge is that there's so many additional news sources. I mean, I guarantee you the lights are so bright we can't see it in here, but if we ask this audience how many of you follow somebody on social media that you'd get information from, a lot of them are going to say, I do, I'm assuming. And we need ways to help people understand in that part of the media space who is following journalistic standards and who's not.
Now, I hate to be the cynic.
No, but just like there's Breitbart and there's the Huffington Post, there'll be different versions of these things.
Okay.
For different audiences. I'm not saying that's the answer. I'm saying we need to start thinking and talking about these ideas to find some answers.
Here's the problem with me, okay? I was looking this up the other day. In the 1970s, Walter Cronkite's half-hour network newscast, 20 million people a night. If you add up Fox, CNN, MSNBC, ABC, NBC, CBS, today, totally, they don't come to that.
Yeah.
Because people were so focused on where they got their news, they believed it.
Right. Well, they call it the front page effect, right? Like you and I are both watching the same thing, so our conversation is centered on the same facts. We don't have that anymore, so I think there's
some people who say, well, that was bad.
Well,
there's all kinds of stuff going on they didn't know about.
Part of that is fair, right? It's cool to have more voices out there, but it's become such so noisy, it's hard to tell what to believe. And I think that, look, there are videos, I'm not going to, some cable news channels get about 400,000 or 500,000 views an hour total, right? I'll get that on a reel I post. And I'm not even the biggest fish out there. You know, if you take somebody who does TikTok dances and they get way more and they can throw some facts.
By the way, more people are on TikTok than any place. You know that.
Yeah.
And of course, it's all going to go away, right?
I don't know.
Unless Trump's people buy it.
Yeah. It seems like they're looking for a fix. It seems like that might stick around.
Why
I don't
do you
know.
think TikTok has risen to the heights?
Oh, they have this algorithm that just is so addicting. It knows you. So you start following a few things and it just keeps feeding stuff to you that is so delightful or entertaining or I don't know. It's all the...
I mean, somehow Connie got on this Instagram and the next thing you know, there are dogs everywhere.
Right. Is she on TikTok or Instagram?
Instagram.
Yeah.
And she has a big following now. She didn't know what the hell Instagram was. She writes this book, you know, and all of a sudden she goes on Instagram. That's how she got on this goddamn best-selling list. She went on Instagram.
It's amazing.
She went on Instagram, and now you think next thing you know, she had like 300,000 viewers within 3 weeks or something like that.
I mean, she's Connie Chung.
Oh, yeah, right, sure.
Totally. We want as much Connie Chung as we can get.
All right, I've been Mr. Chung for 40 years. I don't need this.
She's amazing.
She loves you, though. She does.
I mean, I don't even know how to take that. That's amazing to hear. Like, I can't believe Connie Chung knows who I am, A. And B, I just please
She's
say,
got the sweatshirt. News, not noise.
please tell her thank you. Because if her work hadn't come before, we wouldn't be able to do what we're doing. She really broke down a lot of doors for women in journalism.
Yeah, she did. She did. Thanks. I'll tell her. I'm off track. As soon as I think about Chung, I go.
I love that. You're such a great
I
couple.
think about the Chunger. It's just this ridiculous. Our friends call her the Chunger.
Is that it?
Yeah.
What do you call her?
Jesus. Hey, you. No. When I watch your Instagram, I mean, you must be pounding it out
Yeah, I'm on all the
20
time.
hours a day.
Well, this is my problem.
Good.
Can you
like to hear it?
What do I do? I wake up and I say every day, you know what? It's not healthy to check the phone right away. I'm going to not do that. I'm going to exercise, play with Bruno,
Well,
meditate.
Stop right there. What's the first thing you look at?
My phone.
No. What's the first
Texts.
What's the first service you go to?
I go to text, then I go look at Insta, and then I
No, I'm talking about. Do you go to the New York Times first? Do you go to the Post first? Do you go to Axios? Do you go to Politico? Do you go to where do you go?
it really it's one of it's Axios or Drudge. I still check the Judge Report obsessively.
I watch him.
He is the
see him
most
every day.
exceptional aggregator. I love politicalwire.com.
You ever met him?
No, have you?
Yes.
What's he like?
We're in an elevator. I think Connie and I are in an elevator, and I can't remember the hotel. I can't remember that. Might have been Vegas, I think, maybe. And all of a sudden, this guy comes in the elevator, this tall guy with a fedora.
He has a hat. That's what I was going to ask. He does wear it.
Of course.
Yeah.
And he introduces himself, and I was just blown away.
That's cool. Yeah.
And so this guy has stayed in the shadows forever.
He is remarkable, though. His reach, even if people, like those of you who don't check Drudge Report, it is still an assignment editor to the rest of the media. He just is great at unearthing.
I would want to interview him so bad just to ask him one question.
What?
And that is, when and why did he turn on Trump? Because he was a big supporter in the beginning.
Yeah. And it's
Now,
really,
for everybody, Drudge's first moment of notice, it was Matt Drudge who cooked up the Monica Lewinsky, Bill Clinton affair. He had it first. And that's when Drudge first started.
Mm-hmm. And he stayed in the game so effectively.
I mean, I see the views he gets.
It's crazy. But I don't think of him as anti-Trump. I think that he gives Trump props when Trump is doing, has effective days or, hours of days because the cycle's like that. And then he can really turn on him, too.
We interrupted each other.
Yeah, where
when you
were we?
Talking about.
When I wake up, I used to look at Twitter first, and I feel it's like the loss of it's as if there's been a death in the family.
Because of Elon.
It's not what it was, and there's no place quite like it anymore. So I look at all the places you named, Instagram too, Blue Sky, Threads. I mean, there's so many places to check now. WhatsApp.
And do those sites give you what stories you're going to cover?
Oh, so yes, but also one of the best things about this is I have so much engagement with my audience that they send me things that are happening around them, and I learn so much that way.
You mean Bluestone 2345?
No, it'll be like last night, we're here in Denver. Last night I posted on Instagram and I said, hey, everybody, would you like to do a get-together, News Not Noisers in Denver? And a bunch of people met me at Lowry Beer Garden. I don't drink beer, but they had a lot of stuff that was good. And we sat and just talked about the news. So those people are regular people who tell me about what's happening around them. And they're saying, why is this? I learned so much about the news last night that I didn't know.
And you believe them?
Yes, I can check it.
Gee whiz.
We know how to check stuff.
on the podcast, every time I do the podcast, what we call the 19th hole, and I give my guests the opportunity, I don't know what's coming out, to ask me questions quickly, and so we can get it over with. And then we're going to open it up for questions from you all. Go
Great.
ahead.
Okay. If you could pick one person, living or dead, famous or not, to reveal their paternity to, who would it be?
Wow. I've had, over the years, I've been named in so many rap songs, you can't believe it. I'm a hip hop favorite, but I guess there's a lot of ways to rhyme Maury, and they've been able to do it over the years. I can't think of any.
I remember when I was younger, Connie Chung was interviewed, and she said that she's never encountered sexism in her career. And I remembered that because I was like, that can't be right. And years later, she said, of course she encountered sexism.
Yeah.
I'm curious, as the spouse, what did you see when she came home? What kind of things did you hear about, and how did you
Well,
guide
you'll
her through that?
understand this. It's usually about some asshole manager at the network where she's working in the newsroom who's giving her all kinds of, and I would say to her, look, it's very simple. He either wants to F you or F you over. One of the two.
That's good. That's good. That should be like a motto in someone's office.
Yeah.
Okay, and my last question is, well, I have many more, but I was limited to 3, is I do a live show on Substack, and I would love to interview you. Could we trade places, and would you be
Really?
a guest on my show?
Tell me something. This is how stupid I am. What the hell is Substack?
Substack is a platform kind of like Instagram. You can think of it that way. But it started as a newsletter platform. And it's
Right, because I see all these guys who are leaving CNN and, I'm starting a new thing on Substack.
Yes, because you can write there and you can monetize it. It makes it easy for people to pay to support your work, which is the hardest part of what I do. And now they've just started video. And so it's great for people like me and for you. So I think you should be on Substack, and I would love to help get you over there.
Okay, I'll do
Cool. Thank you.
it. I'm an easy date.
Okay. Thank you so
Okay.
much.
Well, let's open it up for questions. I'm sure you have a lot for Jessica. I'm just the facilitator. Yes.
Hi. So I feel like this is really serendipitous. So I work locally at a university here, and on Thursday, one of my students, she's a double major in journalism and education, and after class, she came up to me and said, I really need to speak to you. And I could tell she was holding back tears. And I'm like, okay. And I'm prepared for like the worst. And she said, I don't think I want to be an educator. I know that now after student teaching. I said, that's okay. She's like, and I double majored, and my passion and heart is in journalism, and we've had conversations multiple times about this because I was a journalist before I became a rhetoric teacher. And she just started sobbing, and I said, well, what's wrong? Because you just told me you know that your heart and soul is there. And I knew it all along too, but she needed to figure it out on her own. She's terrified. She is so simply terrified, she said, as a 21-year-old girl to enter this profession, because she said she feels like the climate that we're living in is so contentious and so decisive that it's like she just wanted something hopeful, right? From me, that's what she was looking for. She wasn't looking for necessarily like a solution, or it's like she came to me as a mentor. And sitting here, I was like, oh my gosh, this is perfect. I wish she was here. What hopeful message as a journalist to a young journalist in 2025, right? What message would you give her to encourage her that, like, yes, like, keep doing what you feel in your gut is what you want to do?
I think there's never been a more important time for people who are called to this and have that much compassion and heart to step forward and find the way to cover our reality and do what I've been talking about, which is empower and inform people with information. I think we're all being invited at this moment to figure out the ways that we can uniquely make a contribution. And it sounds like she knows hers, and she just has to be encouraged to get past that fear, honor herself, and find the safe way to do it. But this is the time to do it.
Do you know, I've been asked a lot of questions about, where we're going with journalism, and can we ever get back to the fact that it's not slanted, it's not biased. Local journalism is really pure. It's really honest. And people watch because it's their town, it's their neighborhood. They want to know what's happening in their neighborhood. So I always encourage young people, start local. That's where you really will get your chops, and that's where you really get the satisfaction.
Don't you have a local newspaper?
I have a local newspaper in Montana, where we live part of the year, and it does great. And I'm so proud because it was all started with kids coming out of the University of Montana Journalism School. And 17 years later, any stripe of politics in the state of Montana, it doesn't matter what you are, they love the paper.
Awesome.
Yeah, so I like that. So I would add that. Go ahead. Anybody else?
So I just hit 17 years in the Air Force, so I don't watch the news at all because I feel like I live a lot of things daily. But I've only been in Denver a couple of years, and I started watching the local news. So you're right, like watching the local news and getting like those feel-good stories kind of like got me back into like seeing what's going on out there. So my question for you is, as you're giving people the space and the platform to find something good in news, what do you consume to give that same energy back to yourself after consuming some things that can be like panic attack worthy?
I live in LA, so I do a lot of woo-woo stuff. I learned to meditate. I might do stuff that's even more woo-woo than that. But I started because of this two sort of franchises. One is we do something I call News That Doesn't Suck, which is not the water skiing squirrel, which is how local news often, it's fun. That's good. We do that too. But stories of like actual like scientific breakthroughs, people making a difference, because it's a reminder that there's still progress, cooperation, and reason for hope. And I just started this thing where I do a shout out once a week to somebody doing something. People write in saying who's somebody that they want to honor, who's doing something to make lives better for others. And I find that every time I do those stories, I start to choke up, and I feel lame because why am I getting emotional? But it's so heartening. I spend so much time looking at the bad. It's so heartening to remember how many people out there are not looking for limelight, not looking for fame. They're just out there helping people every single day, and they don't get a lot of acclaim. And it's helpful to see those people and remember.
Okay. Anybody else? Yes.
Do you think that the two-party system has sort of run its course? I mean, you're out. You are out. You were out last night with somebody. People are more nuanced than like two baskets, And the reason why there's no cooperation is because there's no other entity offering anything else.
I agree that this is I don't know if it's a post-partisan moment in a sense. My hobby horse right now is talking to people about coalition, and people say to me, "What's coalition?" And I'm like, it's when two people who disagree on some things work together on the other things they agree on. And so we've seen this a lot, I think especially on the left, where if you don't ascribe to 100% of what I agree with, you're canceled in some way. And that's part of the reason we are where we are with so much division. There are other reasons, but it is a part of it, and it's vital that we get past that.
Also, you might realize that when it comes to the electorate, the only electorate that is gaining are independents. And so obviously there's a large portion of the country who's not believing in either one of the parties and has just declared themselves independent.
Hi. So the internet has really altered our social fabric. You found that our world is so much larger, and the communities that we're in are so much larger. And I find that really makes free speech such an interesting new kind of a context. Because back in the day, if you had your local newspaper, saying libelous things or spouting lies, there was an accountability to that because you were in your community and people in your community could hold you accountable and could stop supporting your newspaper. But now, with things being so infinite and so free for everything to be out there all the time, do you have any thoughts about how we kind of, I don't know, rein in some of those mechanisms online that are incentivizing people to lie and to be so extreme?
I think it's the $100,000 question. I go to dinner panels on this all the time. People are working on it, discussing it. What I find is that a little bit, I think of it differently. It's not that we can rein in because people are going to do what they're going to do. It's how do we help people who care about the facts and care about truth figure out who are the voices who are giving it to you, who can you trust and who can you not. And that goes back to what we were talking about earlier. We need to still build that infrastructure and those tools. I think we can use some tech to do that, but we are in this awkward period where we haven't done it yet, and it is vital. And it goes back to protecting citizens, informing them in our democracy.
I want to thank Jessica. Everybody, please give Jessica a hand for her to take the time away from Bruno and the rest of her life. Thank you so much.
Thank you from the bottom of my heart so much. Thank you.
It was a great podcast with Jessica Yellin. She was terrific. I learned so much. You know, that's one of the reasons why I'm doing it, is that I just rely on my curiosity because she's in a world that I know very little about. And I think she explained it well. And guess what? Independent journalism is here to stay. She's the prime mover of it. And also, I know a lot more about social media than I did before this podcast. If you've had as much fun as I did, make sure you subscribe to On Par with Maury Povich on YouTube and tap that little bell so you don't miss a thing. And if you like to listen on the go, we're on Apple, Spotify, everywhere you get your podcast. Hit that follow button. I'll be back with more before you know it. On Par with me, Maury Povich, is brought to you by Mopo Productions, A Better Life Media, and Radley Studios, with executive producers, me, Maury Povich, Holly J. Mirabella, and Christian Thompson. Supervising producer Mike Bornasian. And directed by Mark Leibowitz.